And there's one thing I do want to say that the Senate and the House did before we do go off of there. And that is, today, both the Senate and the House unanimously passed a resolution urging the Federal Communications Commission, to the members of the Senate and to the congressional delegation, that they reconsider the proposal to limit the channel power of this station. Senator Kendall and I co-sponsored that, along with the other senators that are in the county serviced by this area. I think that I wanted to mention that because you are rendering a great service through this area, and I tell you, I'm sure Senator Kendall feels the same way, that anything the legislature can do, they have indicated today that they were most willing to do to help save this station insofar as the area and the people that they're serving. That was something else.
What was the vote on that?
Unanimous.
In both houses?
I know it was in the Senate, and I understand the same is true in the House.
Yeah, the continuation of a strong signal from WSFA TV would certainly be popular in my area.
Well, with that note, gentlemen, I think we'll have to interrupt tonight's program.
Fellow Alabamians, I am here today to discuss with you briefly the situation which has come about as a result of an order of the Federal Communications Commission. This order directly affects the television service in your particular area. I have with me my colleagues, Honorable William Springer of Illinois, Bill, and Honorable Peter Mack of Illinois.
Thank you, Ken.
Glad to have them to join us because this order affects 8 major cities in the country, including areas in the respective districts of Bill Springer and Peter Mack. Now, we would like to say that we're trying to do all we can to prevent this order de-intermixing VHF and UHF channels. Bill, what do you think about this order, and what do you think Congress should do about it?
Well, the order, of course, will order these 6 areas in the United States to become either VHF or wholly UHF. I have opposed this order, and I've asked for an investigation by the House Committee on Interstate and Foreign Commerce because I felt there was so much of the public interest in this issue that it ought to be investigated completely to know first whether or not the contemplated order which the Federal Communications Commission may issue is in the public interest, whether or not that order could possibly be in the public interest. I think a second thing, even if the Commission decides that it believes it is in the public interest, there is a larger question which ought to be decided by the Congress, and that is, broadly, whether or not there is a public issue here which is larger than the Commission and ought to be decided by the Congress. And of course, we are the ultimate deciders of what is in the public interest. And that is the reason that I've asked for that investigation, and I think we will get it in January, before this order has an opportunity to become final.
Peter, how do you feel about the FCC order and its effect on the people in your particular area?
Well, I agree with my very good friend and colleague from Illinois, Bill Springer. In addition to that, I think that this proceeding is in violation of 307B of the Federal Communications Act. I don't believe it was the intent of Congress that we should arbitrarily select certain sections of our country and deny first-class radio or television service to these people. And for this reason, I'm very much opposed to the proposal of the Federal Communications Commission. I believe that all of our people in the country, that all of the states and all of the communities are entitled to the equal television service. These airways belong to all the people in our country, and therefore I believe that all of the people should be entitled to the use of the airways and entitled to first-class radio and television service.
Peter, didn't it seem to you that the order was highly discriminatory as far as the rural areas were concerned? It seemed to me they kind of picked on the country boys.
Well, I'm I agree with you on that, Ken, because the UHF service admittedly does not extend over as large an area as the VHF service. And it would seem to me that if they were really trying to have a successful de-intermixture arrangement, that they would give the inferior service, or the UHF service, to the heavily populated areas, such as Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and they would provide the better service, the VHF service, which would cover a larger area in the rural sections, so that they could cover approximately the same number of people. And I do think that they are discriminating against the people in the rural sections of our country with this proposal.
I think, Ken, I might say this: if you took the area, which would be compressed, if you took out VHF in my own area, which extends largely into Mr. Mack's district too, as well as up into Mr. Aaron's district, it would cut the area of reception almost in half. And it would be the large rural areas away from the cities that would be deprived of first-class service for TV.
Yes, I think Bill is exactly right. As a matter of fact, if this happens, we're going to have segments of our society and areas of our country that will be without any television service at all.
I certainly appreciate having you gentlemen join me on this program, as I appreciate our being in the fight together. I think we're on the proper committee, which has jurisdiction of the Federal Communications Commission, and I believe that this is a committee that can do something about it. I think we are right in attempting to do something about it, and I hope that we'll be successful in preserving these channels and the reception in the areas now affected. My fellow Alabamians, I would like to address you at this time to tell you a little bit about a bill which I've introduced in the House and which, if approved, would prevent the loss of VHF channels in some 8 major cities in the country, including our own Channel 12, station WSFA TV here in Montgomery. The loss of these channels would be the result of action recently taken by the Federal Communications Commission to de-intermix 8 market areas by removing existing VHF channels from those areas. The VHF channels would be replaced by ultra-high frequency channels, which in themselves are not as good as VHF, not only from a standpoint of reception, but would limit the areas of reception, creating so-called white areas where no reception would be possible, especially in the farm areas. For example, this station, WSFA TV, now covers some 13,000 square miles. Should it be required to revert to UHF, the area covered would be reduced to about 5,000 square miles. Further, should all VHF stations in the country be forced to operate on UHF channels, more than 25% of all the land area in the United States would lose all of its television service. For many in this area who now are receiving this telecast, the use of UHF would make it impossible for them to receive any service. Your set would be a total blank like this. Therefore, it is first the purpose of my bill to preserve the VHF channels in those communities to which they have been assigned. I recognize the great need, however, for additional TV stations in many communities which have inadequate TV service at the present time. Only a few of these communities can obtain additional VHF channels due to the lack of spectrum space. Therefore, in many communities, UHF stations may ultimately render the additional needed service. However, these stations face the handicap in that most of the receiving sets now manufactured do not receive UHF. Therefore, my bill would give to the FCC authority to require that electronic manufacturers design TV sets so that all channels can be received, whether VHF or UHF. I feel most strongly about this matter. Not only would our particular area be affected by the Commission order, but as time moves on, unless some action is taken, many more of our major cities, other than the 8 affected by the order at this time, will be faced with the loss of adequate coverage. Specifically, my bill will prohibit the Federal Communications Commission from arbitrarily taking away VHF service from those areas now enjoying VHF channels. The FCC has been furnished funds in the amount of about $2 million to make a full study of the technical performance of UHF television in New York City. These studies have not been completed and will not be completed until mid-1962. Therefore, since these studies will provide essential technical data on UHF, I am firmly of the opinion that no consideration should be given to the shift of any VHF station to UHF until such time as these studies, which have been authorized, have been completed and thoroughly evaluated. The importance of maintaining VHF channels cannot be overemphasized. Losing such a channel in Montgomery, for instance, would deprive many families of all reception and cause many other families to either purchase new receivers or have their sets adapted to new UHF channels. I might point out that the Alabama delegation in Congress recently wrote to the Federal Communications Commission protesting this action. That correspondence has pointed out that Montgomery is the capital city of Alabama, and as such is the center and hub of political activity and news in the state. The maximum power VHF channel here in Montgomery is a medium for disseminating news from our state capital into the homes of over 250,000 Alabamians. It brings to these people, many of whom live in rural areas of the state, the latest in farm and crop information, weather conditions, and other data that affects their daily economic and community lives. In addition, it brings educational programs and entertainment into their homes. My understanding that if the maximum power VHF station in Montgomery were to be deleted, there would be wide areas in Alabama, and thousands of our Alabama families would be solely dependent on bordering out-of-state TV stations for their programs and news coverage. Further, I believe that should the VHF channel in Montgomery be deleted, Alabama would very well be the only state of all the states without a maximum power channel in its capital city. I assure you that I shall work to the end to see that our people continue to have available the reception necessary and to ensure that such reception is the best possible available. Thank you